Hey guys, it's Brad with probatehouseguy.com. So this is a little bit of a different video that I'm doing out here, but I had a conversation yesterday and there's something that is wrong in the real estate industry that really needs to be looked at. This is the discussion around valuing properties based on a price per square foot number. I understand there's some nuances to this, but overall, when an appraiser is appraising your property, they're pulling comparable properties, similar properties to yours. And at the end of the day, they're making adjustments and ultimately getting down to a price per square foot number. So what has this caused? In my opinion, and this is only my opinion, over time, houses get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? The house I grew up in was maybe 2,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-story house. I'm 37 years old. I'll be 38 this year. And this house my parents built this house in 1989, and I lived in that for most of my, childhood. And that house was about 2,000 square feet. For the time, that was a decent sized house, right? And then we finished out the basement, got a little bit more square footage in the basement. But, and back then, it wasn't uncommon. I mean, a lot of my friends, and even the house we lived in before we built that one, it was like a little 1,300 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, right? Or my grandparents' house, right, is just call it a 1960s brick ranch. They're very common here in Georgia. And it was 3 bedrooms, and they did an addition later and added onto it. But houses have gotten bigger over the years, and I think the reason this has happened, obviously people want a little bit more space, right? But the second thing is, in order for builders to make money, they have to build a bigger house because valuations are based off of a price per square foot number. But what that does not take into account, and this happens more often than not, and this goes into a discussion that I was listening to the other day, is that right now, production builders are building crap houses. They're junk. They're building the same standard of houses today in 2023 that they were building in the 1990s. Really, things haven't changed very much since then, and that needs to stop because we're building crap houses, and the building codes are requiring these builders to build tighter and tighter houses, and it's amazing to me. I was having a discussion with someone I know who built houses, and I built the house I'm in right now. You can go check out my other YouTube channel. I'll put a link to it. I did a whole series on how I built this house. It was a full custom build. I built what some might consider a pretty good house. And it's not, passive house standards by any means, but it's a pretty decently tight house. My blower door score in this house, mind you, I wasn't even ready for the blower door guy. My painters had just left the night before, and I got here first thing in the morning, and I was trying to frantically reinstall all of the weather stripping on all the doors in the house because the painters had pulled all the weather stripping out of all the doors to do their painting. And I still got a 2.0 ACH 50 on my blower door score despite I was missing weather stripping on multiple exterior doors to the house. And our sliding back patio door wasn't even adjusted yet, didn't even have all the weather stripping on it yet. And I still got a 2 ACH 50, which is a pretty tight house. Code minimum is 3 ACH 50, so my house is tighter than that. I want to rescore it now that I've got all the weather stripping in and everything's working to see what I actually score. But a lot of these builders are not putting ERVs in this house. They're not putting dehumidification. They're not properly air sealing a house. And they'll tell you, oh, well, the insulation guys come around and spray foam everything. Have you ever seen the crappy spray foam job that these insulating contractors do when they come in and spray? I mean, it's a joke. I went through and I sealed up my house tight, and the guys that came in to do my insulation They came in and did their spray foaming because that's what they're required to do as part of the package. I told him he didn't need to, but the boss man said, if I tell them not to do it on this job, they're going to question me on every other job, whether they should or they shouldn't. The spray foam job that these guys did was a complete joke. I mean, sometimes there was a bead of spray foam just on the surface of the stud, not even in the crack. They just missed it completely. Like, it's just bad. Or they just do it looks good on the surface, but it's really crap underneath it, right? And what that leads to is a leaky house, and that leads to other issues. Let's get back to the discussion though. I could go off on a tangent on this, and I'll do a whole nother video about that, but this price per square foot is forcing builders to build bigger and bigger and bigger houses. And as a society, and this is just my opinion, we don't need bigger houses. You just need better designed space. And we need to focus on building healthier houses and building better houses, right? Because so many times these houses are just built like crap, and they look nice and they have the pretty granite and they have the pretty light fixtures, but behind the walls and the construction of the house is the same way it's been built since the 1990s. And it's crazy that we're still building like that. So what is the solution to this? Well, the solution to this is to better educate real estate agents and appraisers about what makes a good house. And that's not just the aesthetics on what it looks like. What makes a good house versus a bad house? And for example, and the reason I did this whole video is I was yesterday or the other day, I'd applied for a home equity line of credit on our new house. We've been here for 6 months. I was waiting on the 6-month seasoning. We have a significant amount of equity in this house. And in my old house, I used the home equity line of credit to do a lot of other things, not buy boats and stuff, but I used it for some of my real estate stuff. But you know, you're technically not supposed to use it for that, but it's helpful. It's just a line of credit that I can use. Instead of borrowing private investors' money, I can borrow my own money. So anyways, I was applying for home equity line of credit, and in this credit union that I was going through, they just do what's called an AVM, which is essentially an automated valuation model. They're just doing a desktop appraisal or whatever using AVM software. Now, for a normal cookie cutter house in a cookie cutter neighborhood, that's fine. You know, maybe it might be plus or minus $10,000 or $20,000 in value. But for a house that I built, this full custom home, and the way I built this house, we have a subdivision across the street from us that's currently being built. These are newer construction homes, but honestly, they're built like crap. I've walked through them. They're terrible. They're built by a major national home builder, and they are selling these houses for $700,000-$800,000. They're 3,500 square feet. They're spacious house, but they're crap. They've got 3.5-inch baseboards and clamshell door molding on the doors in a $750,000 house. They've got sheet vinyl is their standard product in these houses. The workmanship is awful. The houses are built. They built these they started them like during the sort of lumber issues, and they decided to sheathe all these houses with thermoply, which if you don't know what thermoply is, it's a code-approved material, but it is like glorified cardboard. Literally, if you saw thermoply and it was not laying with the foil, if it was laying with the foil face down, the average person would look at it and say, well, that's just thick cardboard is all that is. And literally that's all it is. But somehow this is approved to sheathe a house. And if you see some of these houses before they put siding, the job that these framers and the contractors do on this thermoply is terrible. It looks awful. And they tape the seams, but the tape they use is crappy tape. And eventually that seam's gonna pop loose because the tape doesn't stick over time. So anyways, these houses are built like crap. I built this house right here with 2x6 construction. I used Huber zip system sheathing. I did spray foam. I did R19 bats in the walls, hence the 2x6 construction. I did upgraded HVAC systems. We did upgraded flooring. We did upgraded trim package. This is a full custom home. Plus we're on a 2-acre lot. And I know that when they run the AVM, it's going to pull comps from the neighborhood directly across the street. And those are not comparable properties. This property is worth way, way more money than those houses over there. because of the standard of construction. And even if you drive around this area and you look at some of these custom built homes that there's a few builders around here are building them. And then if you looked at the way I built this house, and I'm not saying this to brag at all, but the quality of construction that I did on this house is far superior to even homes around here that are selling for over $1 million, that are nice farmhousey style houses and all that stuff. This needs to be an education opportunity for the industry, for appraisers, for real estate agents to understand what makes a good house and what makes a mediocre house and what makes a crappy house, right? Because everybody just looks at what's pretty and they don't look about what's behind the walls, and all of that stuff costs money and adds value to the property despite what people might think. But in an appraiser's eyes, that stuff really doesn't add any value. And that's what's wrong and what's broken with the current system, is that we're not looking at, and you've got the HERS scores for houses and stuff like that, but that's like a one size fits all approach. It's not a very good methodology. So we as an industry have to come up with a better way to differentiate better built houses from crappier built houses, because they're essentially valued the same, and they're not worth the same. In some buyers' eyes, they don't care about the stuff, but then they realize in 20 years from now, or not even that, some of these houses I'm seeing built, give you a great example. There's a house across the street from some friends of ours. It was actually a lot that we were looking at buying, and then another investor came in and bought it and built a spec home on it. He built this 4,000 some odd square foot house. Ironically, this was originally a basement lot. They tore this house down and then they just backfilled the dirt and then they poured a slab on top of it. This slab is going to have issues because I did not see them bring in any sort of compaction equipment. They ran over it with a 953 a few times. Guys, that is not compacting the soil. Running over it with a Cat 953 a couple times and tracking it in is not compacting the soil, especially when you're backfilling an entire basement. I mean, they brought truckloads and truckloads of dirt. They moved some other dirt around, and they essentially then just poured a slab on top of this. And that is going to have foundation issues. It's going to settle. It's going to crack. So they built this big 4,000 square foot house. I watched them do it. They did a terrible job at house wrapping the house. To be honest, when you're building a house of that kind, this house ultimately sold for like $1.3 million or something like that. They did it with house wrap, which is the standard thing that everybody does, right? Commodity OSB sheathing, house wrap. They didn't do any overhangs on this house at all. And then the siding crew is literally, they're relying on the caulk and the siding joints to keep the water out. This house will have major water damage issues in the next 5 to 7 years. I can guarantee it. Just looking at it, I watched this house get built because it was right across the street from some friends of ours. I watched the whole thing. I walked through it during construction. I feel bad for the people who bought it because they paid $1.3 million for behind the walls, the bones of it. It looks like crap. It's a crappy built house. And it's sad that they built that, or that they paid for that, but they'll figure that out the hard way. So we got to do a better job and focus on this as an industry to be better at this. So hope this video makes sense. Appreciate your time, guys. I'm Brad with probatehouseguy.com. I'm actually a real estate investor. I specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties. I'm here in Metro Atlanta, but I buy houses all over Georgia. And so if you have a house that you need to sell, you have a client that has a house that they need to sell, please give me a call. I'd love to chat with you about it. I can make you an offer on the house. Again, specialize in probate and inheritance, so there's no situation that we haven't run through in these types of messy inheritance type deals. So thanks again, guys. I appreciate your time. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.